Well, good afternoon on this lovely Monday here in the Carolinas on August 18th. We are here at the Cumberland County Courthouse. Good to be with you. I am Veronica Jones, and we are at the joint City of Fayetteville Cumberland County Liaison Committee meeting. Our members of this particular committee, that is Chairman Derriere for the Board of Commissioners. Also, we have Commissioner Patel, and we have the lovely Miss Mayor Pro Tem Kathy Jensen, and the lovely Miss City Councilwoman Miss Courtney McLaughlin. We are so glad to be here today. I will now at this time ask for our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance. If I could please get Miss City Councilwoman Courtney McLaughlin to lead us in that. All those that can, please stand.
Yes. Lord, thank you for allowing us to gather here today in hopes that we can make sure that we partner very well so that we can benefit the residents here in our community. I pray that you bless those who are not able to attend this meeting and those who are watching via social media or on YouTube. Please allow us to come together and just do the best that we can to make sure that we ensure that we're doing the best for our community, and pray for those who are going through things such as grief or going through things such as stress, because we have a community that are in dire need of strength and partnership and collaboration. So Lord, again, just thank you for allowing us to be here today so that we can make some progress and move the city forward. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And this meeting is now formally called to order, and we will continue with our agenda. First item of business on the agenda, Mr. Greer, I would ask for approval of the agenda. I ask if there's any changes to this agenda at this time.
No changes to the agenda, Vice Chairwoman Jones.
I call for a motion, a second, and a vote of approval for this agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Second.
And we will now move on to items of business.
Can I get a vote real quick?
Yes. I'm sorry. All those in favor for approval of the agenda, it's been a long weekend, raise your right hand.
Unanimous.
Thank you. And now we can review the minutes. Can I get approval of the minutes for the June 16th, 2025? You can review those minutes if you have those by via way of either probably by your email. I request a approval for minutes of the June 16th, 2025 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Can I get a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Unanimous.
Thank you so much. Today's meeting, we will be discussing economic development in Fayetteville and in Cumberland County. We have the honor of having with us today Robert Van Goens. He is the President and CEO of our Economic Development. We also have our guest Ty Vaught. He is the Interim Director as well as the Chief of Staff here for Cumberland County. And we also have from the City of Fayetteville Economic Development. I'm not sure, but I do believe that is Chris with us today. Colleague Chris is here. Hi, Chris. Thank you for joining us, the director for the city. As many of you know, it's very important, our economic development for the City of Fayetteville as well as for Cumberland County. So today, these gentlemen will bring us information, hopefully in regards to where we're moving in the direction for economic development, number one, some positive programs and some positive businesses that have already been sustained here from 2025 and what look that we can expect for 2026. So our first presenter will be that of Mr. Robert Van Goens, also known as Robo. Thank you for being here today, and the floor is now yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity to give you a brief update. I have a lengthy deck that I have a short presentation on, so if there's additional questions, we can go a little deeper on some of these, but I think it's always important to go back and just, for those watching or not familiar with us, FCDC is a 501c6. We are yours and the city's designated economic development organization. We receive funding from the city, the county, which we're incredibly grateful for, and the private sector as well. This is our board, of which you appoint, which the chair sits, and you appoint another 3 members. The city does the same, and the county and the private sector appoints 2 members to our board. In general, the things we work on are supporting and growing existing businesses. We call on up to 100 companies a year, everything from early stage companies looking to be a government contractor or to find their first building, all the way to our largest private sector employers like Goodyear with roughly 2,600 or so folks out there. We spend, while that is our core mission, that's where most of jobs are actually statistically created in the community. Everybody always likes the ribbon cutting and the groundbreaking, so recruiting new private sector employers is where we also spend a significant amount of time marketing the community. We'll talk a little bit about that. But identify and facilitating new real estate development, that next generation of sites, positive development, but also then becomes a challenge is, things like the CIC Business Park and the 401 North site and so many other properties are now seeing development. We now need that next generation of opportunity. Marketing our community, providing a database of every site and building available for commercial use, doing research for you, for companies, and for our communities, providing information to the towns around grants and helping to support their development goals, and then also collaborating with our partners. At the end of the day, while we work with you on incentives, while we work with property owners, we don't control a piece of property. We don't give an actual incentive. It is through our partnerships and the collaboration we do to provide everything from workforce development training on down to the incentives that help secure a deal. And we also jump in on a number of projects and initiatives. If you ask and it's in our capacity, we will make that happen for you. When we promote our community, these are some of the things that we lean on, that we are the 6th largest city in the Carolinas, period, north or south. I always like to come back to there are 16 states without a city the size of Fayetteville. So we really are a dynamic and community of scale on the national level. 1.5 million people within the drive time. Our average age, importantly, that you see 85 native languages spoken in this global economy. That is something for a community our size that differentiates us from the competition. If I have one statistic to give a site selector from the West Coast or a company on the other side of the world, that is the one that diversity stands out the strongest. So our recruitment strategy is data-driven. We look at micro sector-specific networks, and I say that because you would be shocked how different a company that makes plastic particle board for like decking, and a company that makes plastic PVC pipe, and a company that manufactures parts made out of plastic, all have entirely different logistic drivers in their overall operation. So we get very detailed into what we can do, generating those relationships, looking at supply chain analysis, cost of business comparisons, and being honest but aggressive about what our community can offer to a company. We often like to say that our skilled and talented workforce is best on the applied side. We want more PhDs here, but if you need 1,000 PhDs, the RTP is going to beat us. But we're not a community that gets by just on the labor of our back, but rather on the caliber and competency of our workforce. So these are some things that we do. Looking back, last year we had one of our most active years in the total of announcements and projects generated with Project Arrow, which we'll provide an update on here, the opening of Amazon and many others. But we get out there and we work from events to supporting existing companies to, now I will say, I always want to preface this, you'll see me singing here in front of the Site Selectors Guild. I was a music theater major. I'm a classically trained tenor, so when I do Aerosmith, Dream On, have confidence I will not embarrass you. So I put the work in there. But any way it takes, I will sing for my supper and for the good of our community. But Select USA, we're dealing with international companies, partnering with our region, real estate events, and all sorts of other opportunities.
Madam Chair, point of order if I can for the presenter. You don't have the 5th largest county in the Carolinas.
I will chastise my marketing communication staff aggressively on that, but we will make sure that that is definitely in there.
And we want to add, and the largest, I'm going to be Mayor Pro Tem to it, the largest United States Installation Army base at that is right adjacent.
But I thought everybody here knew that, so we didn't have to repeat it in the time we have on the slide.
We're a transitional military base here, and we have people coming and going, so we want to make sure for the listeners that they're all aware of both of that information.
Absolutely, and we do like to say that talent pipeline that constantly regenerates itself is a unique thing that we have, and what we're talking to companies about, their number one demand, which is skilled workforce, that we have, honestly, we continually have a second opportunity to make a first impression to 7,000 soldiers and their families each year that transition out. When a company is looking for a location to either expand or locate, they balance out the quality of place, the building product that can meet their needs, utilities, pricing, labor, all these things weigh into their decisions where they ultimately funnel it down. But we are blessed with 2 of the top rated factors in our favor. No matter the economy, highway accessibility remains near or at the top every year when people go out looking for a new location. We've got Main Street USA with 95, I-685 that we're looking to have come to our community will give us even greater advantages. But the availability of skilled labor. For the cost, if you are involved in applied innovation, advanced manufacturing, logistics, we can provide you a better workforce at a lower cost than any of our major urban competitors that we've come across so far. So working with existing industry, things like the expansion of Booz Allen Hamilton, working with the city and Phillips Towing Services for a reuse grant for that company there to help them grow. We bring together our industry and things like our Transportation Logistics Committee, our Plant Managers Association. We're working to identify new opportunities, work with property owners and utility providers, including PwC on some, Duke Energy and other providers on others, to bring that next generation of opportunity and sites to bear to the market. You can see some of the buildings coming up, 1010 Dunn Road, and some of these others. Announcements. We have had a lot of announcements over last year. Project Arrow, that was a 300 job, $867 million investment. Quick update on that. The project is moving forward. We have met with them multiple times. They're coming back into town in a few weeks here. The property, the final things are being done with EDA grants, surveying, geotechnical, building layouts, permitting will follow. So I just want everybody to know that project is moving forward. Amazon, I think we've all seen the activity out there. Yeadon Domes, another recent announcement. Roley's Ecmeda down in Hope Mills as well. We do work you can see here, this is your Sand Hills Road site that with grants, OPM, other people's money, our favorite kind here, is we were able to grade out that site and do all of the due diligence testing and get an access road built. Now we have interest from multiple data centers to the tune of $1 billion worth of taxable investment looking to come to our community. We're also working on projects like the Next Generation Workforce Assessment. That was an initiative pushed out. I think Mayor Colvin, you were the first to make the organized cry on that, with support from the county being a direct partner in it. Now with the school system, our colleges and universities, talking about how we can ensure that our students and our workforce have are best prepared for the next evolution of opportunity in their lives. We continue to complete the Black Voice History Project for you with updates and presentations coming soon on that. But just if you look at us in a snapshot, and see there, I'm almost done, I promise. Over the last year, so far this year to date, we've had 80 projects come in. Those are people looking at our community. We've had 23 client visits, of which 12 were first time, meaning that's boots on the ground. Companies coming and looking at a site, looking at a building. But you'll see over here on the side, some interesting things are, I'd say, on the horizon. While our workforce numbers, our unemployment rate has continued to be good, nationally we're starting to see a pullback on labor force participation. So unemployment is those actively in the workforce, either looking or employed, minus those that are unemployed and looking. But if people stop looking, your rate can go up while employment actually goes down. So these are things just to think about on our end. The types of projects we're seeing, I will say that some of these, you ask, where do you come up with these names? Well, Project Cookie actually uses unsold cookies to make an animal feed project. Project Nutmeg, the guys from Connecticut, and that's the state, the nutmeg state. Some of these other ones we don't come up with at all. But just the last couple things we're working on is the Next Gen Workforce Strategy, a dynamic marketing project going after strategic cities and communities where we think our message will bode well. We are also working on strategic property controls and property acquisition around the mega site and other transformational projects that is directly made possible through the county support and additional support this year. We are also working on our innovation center in the former Homemakers building, which will bring 35,800 square feet online. We've had an unprecedented interest from private sector companies and research institutions that the city, thank you for your additional support, making that project possible. And both the city and county made the original funding from the federal government your number one legislative priority in that year. And so the last few things here, just we continue to pursue the I-685 corridor and that designation coming to our community, which I believe will probably have for future generations the greatest single infrastructure impact on our future. And we are looking to push forward with additional shovel-ready sites in the major transportation and potential infrastructure corridors around the county. And with that, I know I've kind of crossed my time. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
And before we start our questions, I did want to acknowledge that we do have some of the elected officials. We know our schedule is very busy. I see that we do have from Eastover Mayor McLaurin is here, also City Council members, Ms. Councilwoman, I see her over there, Linda Green, as well as City Council Member Mario Fonte, and we have Horace over here with us also. So I just wanted to know, DeAndres, my correction. Sorry about that. You and I know better. So I just want to acknowledge that they are here, and we appreciate you joining us. And no doubt, our own very own Mayor Cumberland is here as well. So now, if anybody would like questions, just wanted to appreciate you all for being here today. Any questions? If there, one question from the chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Robo, for this group, when you're talking industry, what's your biggest challenge in the recruitment side? I know we're looking at some of that, but just from a point standpoint, our biggest challenge.
I'd say it's two. One being large infrastructure served sites that they can custom develop for high impact projects. When I say large, I mean 250 acres and up 150 acres, where we have our full cadre of water, sewer, natural gas, and good road access, as well as being in a location that isn't directly abutting residential. We have put all those properties under either option, sale, or they're in development, so that next level of opportunity is a need for us. We no longer have any large rail-served sites either, so worth noting on there. The other side of that is we are such a unique community in the sense of the way our population shift goes, how we are, I guess say, classified from consumer expenditure dollars to our workforce with the personnel coming and going, that while we know, based on the real results of these employers and their experiences here, what we're hearing, we have the talent, they have the skills. We have shown time and again, if they don't, we have the resources through our colleges and universities to upskill them and meet demand. But convincing people when they're looking at us and other places that are easier to understand that we have the skilled talent available that will respond at the wages they're able to pay. It's sometimes difficult to quantify, and people will say, well, why don't they just change the way they study it? They can't change it we're so unique, it's impossible to change the metrics to accommodate us without then, not being applicable to others.
And now we do have a question from Mayor Colvin for you.
Robo, thank you. Good presentation. Good to see all of you all, Madam Chair. Thank you. Robert, to piggyback off of the chairman's question about the 200-plus acre sites, we know within the boundaries of Fayetteville, that's tough because it's an urbanized, dense area. As you look out, I'm glad to see Eastover Mayor is here and some of these other neighboring municipalities and towns. How have you started to plan for marrying their land availability with our utilities and to make the sites usable and deliverable?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. That's a great question. We have identified, and we've talked to a lot of property owners. Sometimes, occasionally, it doesn't quite fit right for the town, but most of where we have the land is outside, in those areas in between. Where the challenge is the plans and the funding to extend utilities out to them. And I'd say, I think you're doing great stuff on water, but I need sewer. Without sewer, I cannot have manufacturing, I cannot have a higher density office use, I cannot have even a very large, look at Amazon with 1,000 folks. Without sewer capacity for those bathrooms or for that process, I don't have the ability to put a company there. So we have identified the sites, we even have some willing property owners along major transportation corridors, but getting water and sewer to them in a capacity that we need, especially sewer, which is can be very expensive. That's a challenge. I would say that the other side of that is, if you build it, it will take at least a few years, even if you get the decision today to come before that project is online. And so it's how do you finance that and operate a system that when development will be coming through. On the other hand, if you look at some of these mega site wins, many of those projects are 15 or 20 years old. Those communities made that investment recognizing that it would not return dividends for many, many years to come. Sometimes those elected officials took the heat for it, but now, 10, 15 years later, they are announcing billions and billions of dollars worth of projects.
Thank you. And I have a question as well. Excellent presentation, as he stated, Mr. Robo. But my question is this. I know that you work due diligently and a lot of time that you spend with both of the managers that are here today, Mr. Greer, the county manager, as well as Doug Hewitt, which is the city manager, and no doubt you work with us individually. So my question is, though, now that you have several of us in the room, as far as the city council members and that of we, the commissioners, what would it be that you would like to see us as a group, number one, and individually when we're out here speaking to everybody in layman's term to break things down economically, just the one-on-one conversations, what would you like to see from all of us individually to be talking about or input with our community?
You know, I think it's that collaboration and cooperation on projects that will cross lines between jurisdiction, so because they're heavy lifts that we can't do alone, but we will. I think Ted Abernathy actually said it well there. Is a rising tide lifts all serviceable boats. And I say that there, so we need to come together around those things, but the serviceable part as well as...
Be a little bit specific on which, if I'm talking to just anybody out here, oh, she works at the grocery store, she's asking me about economic development, and she's saying, I'm working 2 jobs, and I would like to know, oh, you're the vice chair of the county commissioners, I know some things off my head, but because this is what you lead up, what would you, I only have 2 minutes to talk to her in the grocery store, what is it that you could say would be 1 or 2 programs that you want me to be talking to our everyday voting citizens that live here and pay taxes about? Because we can't cover it all.
You could tell them 2 things. We're working together, in this my ideal world here, we're working together to invest in the infrastructure and the sites to add thousands of jobs and billions of dollars of tax base to lower your tax rate and provide opportunity. And together, we are working to enhance and improve our educational opportunities so that we are able to deliver to our students and those coming in for retraining to make them work ready. So companies want to come here and we'll hire our folks. And also, I will say that is, just being brutally honest, if we don't make an improvement there, we talking about we want people to work here and live here, and we want them to raise that next generation of their family here, and that in the end comes down to the scoring, performance, and outcomes of our school system. I know you're investing heavily in that, but we've got to get there, and it's going to take all of us to do it. But when I go to pitch our community, not to a company sending 1,000 employees here, but a company whose ownership is coming, and they're going to make their lives wherever that decision is, in the end of the day, it is education, followed by quality of life and public safety, that when they talk about their family and their kids and their leadership moving here.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Mayor Pro Tem Jensen.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So I want to go back to the question that the mayor asked, and what I heard out of that I wanted to make sure that we all kind of heard what was being said, is the only way that we are basically going to get people here, get big companies here, is infrastructure. And a lot of that is water and sewage. And until we get that done, it's going to be very hard. It's an uphill battle. And the other thing that I heard that I want to make sure that everybody heard in the listening audience, this isn't something that's going to be a 2-year fix. We have to think ahead of the game. And I think that if we go back and do our history and we look back at Sanford, they did this 12 to 13 years ago. And if you've been to Sanford lately, you can see that the progress is moving and happening. So I think this is the perfect place that we need to talk about the elephant in the room, that the only way that you can do your job better is infrastructure to bring people here. That's all I had to say. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any more questions or input? I have a question from City Council member of Valente, go ahead.
I think it's mostly for the board members here, because I think while that's true, I want us to consider how do we answer the residential side, who've also been asking for their sewer and water. I want to make sure that if we're talking about an investment in the infrastructure to benefit the economics on that side, that in the same conversation, we're making clear that we're also keeping in mind the residential demands as well. I'm not saying that you're not saying that. I'm just wanting for us to say it all at once, because I don't want anyone to say that we're only looking at one side, not the other.
So, I'm sorry, can I?
Well, you can.
I thought he had it to me. So what I will say to that is, we're talking about economic development at this segment, so that was the only thing. But of course, for the residents too, but in this conversation was building out.
And to my point of it is, and I've said this before, and the reason I brought it up, we have to have a better plan countywide, right, which includes Phase 5. It should not have taken that long for that to happen, but we are where we are because we grew it and now we're trying to catch up. So that doesn't happen to us again. We don't have another 20 years to try to get infrastructure somewhere, because all of these data centers and all of these new employers are going to be elsewhere. And I think as a city, I'm glad that I see so many council members here. We have an opportunity to say that, hey, we have the resource with PwC, but we've kept it to ourselves, to our own detriment, and so we have to figure out how it is that we work with the county, work with PwC to get it to Phase 5 and other places. So I'm glad you brought that up. But for sure, I'm talking about the whole Cumberland County.
Thank you. Yes, and now we would have some input from our Commissioner Patel, and it is a delight to serve with him and the chairman also about the infrastructure committee. So look forward to both of their input. I don't want to take over the whole meeting. Input, please.
Since the chairman's our infrastructure chair, I'll let him to speak on that. But I think one of the biggest things for the community too, when we look at either residential or commercial expansion on infrastructure, the first and most important step, especially outside when we're looking at the larger geographic areas and municipalities, is making sure that we're able to deliver safe water first. So that, I think, we while we work and think about infrastructure, that's got to be cognizantly number one priority. So that's all I have to say.
Madam Chair, if I just may say, though, that I look around this room at all the staff, I want you to know that I am personally grateful for the support of every single one of them. There's not a person here that I can't call Friday after 5 to get a letter on a grant, Monday morning at 5 a.m. to get on an agenda. They've been incredibly supportive. At the end of the day, we are only, I think we're 5-6 people at EDC, so we've got incredible partnerships with your teams as well as the regional partnerships, working with PwC and their technical folks, and also the state of North Carolina's EDPNC. So I just want that, be remiss if I didn't thank all of them for their help.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just a quick snapshot. When we talk about infrastructure, we talk about clean, safe, regulated drinking water, along with sewer. There's been a lot of activity happening on the county side, because we know we've got work to do around that. The first thing is really connecting those municipalities, residential as well as industrial side, to ensure that we have the growth that we need out in those areas. So we've worked very diligently, no pun intended, under the water a little bit, working with folks like the mayor from Eastover that's with us, as well as many others, to begin to build out this regional approach, how we can collaborate together to maximize resources, everything down to how we do water meters and how we're billing. There's some collaborative efforts on ways we can do that. And then we know in those unincorporated areas, to the mayor's point and to the Mayor Pro Tem's point, there's backbones that we've got to put in place. We've got some capacity to do that. This board has allocated $250,000 towards water and sewer in this last budget. That's historic. This board has previously not done that at that level, but we are, because we understand it's a piece of the equation that if we don't fix now, we should have fixed 15 years ago, it's going to hurt us. So we're beginning to connect those dots. PwC is a partner in the table, and, we've had some of those discussions on how they fit in, but it's beyond them. We're going to have to look at other resources regionally on how we connect the dots to all of this, so that we can have the foundation backbone that we need when it comes to infrastructure. But that work is being done. As an example, out into Grays Creek on the residential side, clean, safe drinking water. We're building out a backbone, working with PwC, but also into the residential areas as well as to the schools.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to add, speaking of the schools, we are delighted, the three of us, since we are on the Infrastructure Committee. Tomorrow, as a matter of fact, we will be out at the Grays Creek schools. We're excited because we're making progress out there, making sure clean water, putting in some infrastructure type of wells. We know it's just temporary as we work with PwC, but we'll actually be out there tomorrow from 12 to 1, just basically for on the actual site and taking some photos, answering questions, all that great stuff for the progress that we're making ahead. Just taking one more question before we move on. Anyone have any questions? Okay, at this time, I'm going to switch up the program just a little bit. We thank you so much. Excellent presentation and update, and I know our listeners appreciate that as well. I'm going to switch up the agenda a little bit here. Instead, I would like next for the second presentation to be the City of Fayetteville Economic Community Development Director, Mr. Chris Colley, and we will save our director for last. So we just switch this up for us. Thank you so much.
I was pulling up something else.
Moving all this technology so I can get my paper out here. So first off, my name is Chris Colley. I'm the Director for Economic and Community Development with the city. Coming up on 6 years with the city in a couple of months, a little over 5, almost 5.5 as the Director. We have a kind of an interesting department, and I think some of what we're going to talk about today might be a juxtaposition or a comparison and contrast between what the county's community development does versus our economic community development department versus what Robert does. I can tell you right now, though, before we get into all of those details, it is an incredibly challenging team sport. And without each one of us doing the parts that we do well, we would not be able to work together. So, I go to Robert for a lot of stuff. I go to Ty for a lot of things. Ty's kind of jumped into deep water in this community development role, and, we're here to support in any way we can. Right? So, my son turned 5 yesterday, and I struggle to tell him what I do for a living. I'm sure a lot of us, kind of how do you tell a 5-year-old? And so I asked ChatGPT, I was like, hey, based on what you know about me, how would you tell a 5-year-old what do I do, And it came back and said that I help City Council decide where to invest funds to make our community better. And I think that works, right? And I think that works for why we're here today. And so kind of how that works in the context of what we're here today about is 4 areas. Housing, economic development, neighborhood engagement, and then community partnerships and planning, right? So starting with the housing, because that's where I've spent a lot of my time and energy these past 5 years. We do work with private developers on low-income housing tax credit projects. Those are big apartment complexes that are all income restricted. We have a really cool single-family development program that we just launched a few months ago. The first developers are coming through that now, where if they commit to building an infill house and selling it to a qualified home buyer, we will help finance their project. We have an awesome down payment program with our Home Buyer Hero. I'm really proud of that. And we're venturing into looking to partner on financing smaller scale multifamily for affordable housing. That's something that we haven't had a lot of development interest in the past, but we're hoping that that's something we can kick off here in the future. So on that housing piece broadly, we did an affordable housing study about 5 years ago. We had 14 goals on that. So in the next couple of months, I'm going to be looking to go to council to talk about that 5 year ago study and the progress we made, and then updating all of that census data, housing data, market data, and stuff like that, so that we can help come up with new goals for the next 5 years. On the economic development front, I'm really proud of what we've done there. I was able to hire a guy out of commercial lending who decided that he was going to take a pay cut and come do public service with me. And is an awesome guy, Derek MacArthur. He brings a lot of depth and understanding, not just on the community level, but from the private sector as well. We have sent our folks to training. We're good friends with all the folks at Chapel Hill now. I've got several of their cell phone numbers. If you want to know what you can do from partnering with a private developer with using public dollars, whether it's affordable housing or redevelopment, economic development, our team knows what we're talking about, and we're ready to talk to folks who are interested. I think a couple of folks in the room have come to us before and talked to us about potential projects. We had a unique alternative the past couple of years to really put our mark on workforce development. I had some highlights of that's going into a future speech, but so I don't want to ruin too much on that. But we used local money, community development block grant money, and American Rescue Plan money to do some really amazing things across 10 different partners. Several of those have actually feathered into partnerships with the county funding it, like Mid-Carolina and some of the workforce initiatives that they have. But that has been very impactful, and we'll be kind of sharing some of those stats here in the next couple of weeks. The real estate development, that's kind of what I just talked about, right? So the idea that local governments can help guide and incent growth in our community in a certain way. So we can really help look at that from the financial standpoint. And then we get to kind of the heart of what we do on a daily basis, which is our small business programming. So we offer one of the most generous facade programs in the state by far. And we use our community development block grant money to do that. That makes us very unusual because it's real hard to spend that kind of money in that way. And so there's only a few places in the country that actually do that facade type program. It gets real boring into environmental regulations and construction monitoring and stuff as to why it's hard, but we're able to overcome that and make it happen. Gap financing. Right now we have a program that offers up to $125,000 in gap financing for somebody looking to buy a physical location for their business. We'll be looking to go back to council hopefully this fall, if not a little bit earlier, to talk about those small business programs and how we can broaden them. And then the biggest thing we offer is that commercial banker that I've got. I've got technical assistance for struggling small businesses. He can talk to you about a P&L. He can talk to you about your market and the goods and services you provide. He can talk to you about banking relationships that you might not have ever created before. Another thing that we do on that is the downtown management. So our team oversees the contract with Cool Spring and the things that they do downtown. That's really more of a collaborative partnership and just making sure that the manager and council know what's going on with that group that we contract with to manage that downtown. So kind of the last thing before I move on from economic development is that, without ARPA funds, we're going to continue doing some of that workforce development partnerships. We just won't have nearly the amount of money that we've had before, so we have to be very selective about what we fund or what council funds to move forward. It's got to be stuff that's shows a real return on investment. But we did get a new grant. ICMA, the International City County Managers Association, just announced that we were one of 16 cities that won a grant for a senior level person reporting to an assistant city manager who's going to focus on economic mobility. And so we've done several things in the past. I know that the mayor has been a real champion of the tiering system, that we're a tier 1 county from the Department of Commerce. I know Commissioner Deviere, that you near and dear to your heart was the Pathways for Prosperity work that we did. And so I'm looking to bring somebody onto my team, reporting to my boss, who can help us really kind of reframe that from a community-wide standpoint. That when you ask Chairwoman about working together, economic mobility, we got to. The school systems, the community college, the universities, the city, the county, parks department, all of that goes into that model. And so bringing on somebody who's going to work with us for 2.5 years to help build that out and show us a framework. And then I'm going to need everybody to sign on to that framework, all right? But I'm really excited about that work. I have this bad habit of standing up and volunteering for more work. So that's definitely a recent volunteer that we're looking to do there. The last one before I get to the easy stuff is neighborhood engagement. So we have a fairly robust blight removal program. Our code enforcement goes out, identifies dangerous structures. We help tear those down. And then we also provide community resources in communities. We go to lots of community neighborhood watch meetings, just neighborhood meetings in general. We provide some targeted outreach on anything from like training for seniors on IT fraud and how to recognize when somebody's trying to engage in getting your personal information and stuff like that. But then also physical improvements, right? So we've done a couple of targeted improvements in low-income neighborhoods around parks that the dollars just didn't stretch as far as they used to, and so we were able to step in with grant money for those things. And then redevelopment plans themselves. We're looking to work with some folks and try to maybe get a little bit stronger and better at that. There's some North Carolina laws around urban redevelopment that give us some tools that are pretty cool. And so we want to explore some of that to see how we might be able to put actual redevelopment plans in place that we then have the tools and the funding and authority to go out and execute. So that's something that we're looking at coming up with on top of the rest of the stuff I talked about coming out in the next 6 months or so. So the last thing that leaves me with is housing, economic development, neighborhood engagement, and then something to put it all together, which is that community partnerships and planning. So one of the biggest community partnerships we have here is with the county and with Assistant City Manager Skeens on the Continuum of Care. So I'm on the executive board of that. That was important to me coming into the role because we did have money flowing into nonprofits, and I needed to make sure that that money was flowing into nonprofits in some kind of strategic way. And that way, when I stand in front of council and say, is this an okay, are you okay with this plan? I'm able to confidently say that the community is also okay with this plan. So we've been doing a lot of great work with that group, and I know that the county has made some pretty big strides there in the past couple of meetings, and that's really exciting to see what happens next. But on that, we also have our Day Resource Center. We also last year got the Emergency Solution Grant, which means that the city now has about $140,000 a year in homelessness funding. Some of that can go towards rapid rehousing, rental assistance, case management, shelter management, things like that. And then we have an immense amount of partner organizations. I think this year it's 17 that work in everything from some of that youth engagement and diversion to homelessness to a little bit of the workforce training and development. And so the reason I lump the community partners and the planning together is because it takes my team knowing a lot of these folks in the community that all of you know and knowing what they're doing and the great things that are going on to help us come up with a budget that council can look at and support. And so that's part of that planning aspect. So we do a lot of fun stuff. I think I hit them all as quick as I possibly could. I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you for having us.
Thank you. The floor is now open for questions. Anyone have any questions?
I'll say mine after the county presents.
Okay. I do actually just have two questions before you leave. The first one, I appreciate your presentation. You were talking about partnerships, and were you talking about Community of Care or Cumberland County Community Care? I don't want to confuse the voters.
The Continuum of Care, which is that HUD mandated kind of thing. We do have some great relationships with Community Care, though. They've been awesome in some youth mentoring programs that we funded.
And then can you talk a little bit about that for our listeners about that? Yeah, the name sounds similar, I know, but both. I don't want to confuse people. Can you just elaborate just a little bit about particularly what you are doing with it and their organization?
Yeah, so I would say that ACM Skeens can probably do it way better than me, but since I'm up here, I like to think about the Continuum of Care as the Chamber of Commerce for nonprofits working with homelessness.
Right.
It's mandated by HUD. We all got to get together and work on a common set of rules and a common playbook to solve this very large societal problem. And so that gets messy sometimes, right? It gets bureaucratic sometimes. But what HUD wants to see is that we as a community are telling them, when they ask us to, when we say, hey HUD, fund this thing right here, they want to make sure that that makes sense within the context of our community. And so that's what the COC is about. And as we build that back up with the investments that the county has made, one of those investments is going to be leadership, right? Community level leadership of that board. I don't think that it's a perfect scenario for me and Heather to be really strong on that. We should be supporting community policymakers in making those investments in our community. And so that's why I'm really looking forward to that COC getting built up, not just from the infrastructure you guys have put in place, but from a total buy-in from community leadership on that this is an important issue to oversee and work on.
And I thank you, and I brought that up because, as we do know, that is a national crisis situation as well as a community crisis, and we on the county side, we appreciate working with the COC, especially now that the Salvation Army is closed, and we have a committee that's an emergency shelter committee that's working collaboration with yourself, with the city, as well as other entities. So I just wanted to make sure our listeners out there do know that we know the significance and we understand a hand up, a help up for those that are unhoused population. And my other question is this: when you were speaking of neighborhood engagement, I know, for example, I'll use an example. I work with several of our commissioners as well as the city council, but myself and the city council member, Derek Thompson, he's not here today, but we bounce off of each other a lot in regards to when it comes to the planning and coding. We get a lot of neighborhood individuals that will call, speaking of economic development, about issues, I guess, with the zoning that they find. I'll use one for example. I think it's out in Aaron Lake, so I don't want to put out too many names out there, but there's an issue with the coding that there's an abandoned bus, and I'm sure the city council members know where I'm going with this, that he's been calling me about, because it's one of those areas where it's on the lines of county and city, and zoning can't seem to do anything about it. So when we think of economic development, issues like that, how do you all work with, just if you could talk a little bit about with the planning when it comes to coding enforcement? I get calls like that, I have to bounce back to the city gets calls, they have to bounce back to me about the importance of the zoning and coding. You have people, they're buying homes, and their frustration that their neighbors that might be renting have these big buses or other things that are, ours, a site that doesn't look good, number one, but also the concern of their property going down. Sometimes renters don't care about that, but most definitely homeowners do. So can you talk a little bit about, in the economic development, what are you all doing in engagement with working with planning, coding? I know that's something I'm going to definitely talk to the county about. The two departments in coding may be working better together, and that for our homeowners and some of our renters that also have these concerns too.
So I think I'm very fortunate that the city manager has not seen fit to put code enforcement under my department. But we do work closely with our planning and development folks who have code enforcement along with zoning regulations and things like that under them. I can't speak to that case. I'm not sure of the details of it. But, I think one of the things that's important to consider is that those homeowners that are around there, the city puts significant resources into helping those homeowners, especially if they're lower income and seniors, to fix things that are wrong. If their HVAC is going out, if their roof is bad, we spent $700 and change last year on that between Fayetteville Urban Ministry and Habitat for Humanity. You do look at the area and you go, like, this is a low-income community. How tough do you really want to be on folks who might not be able to afford it? We have resources to help them, and then we need to hold those landlords accountable. And I think that's just kind of my 2 cents on it. I can't really talk the code enforcement side of it at all and like what's been done with it, but hopefully that gives you the best I got.
Actually, resources help a lot, and I'll do a follow-up with the managers.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Any more questions, or before we move on, or any more questions? You have a question?
And Mr. Collins, this may be something that your county counterpart could just give us some follow-up data on, but us moving from a tier 1 county to 2 or 3, I think there's some intuitive sort of interest in getting us from 1 to 3, straight to 3, but that there's some give and take sometimes just going from 1 to 2, maybe some access to certain opportunities as a tier 1 that simply squeaking into 2 may not always be advantageous, but just if there's an opportunity for you guys to give us some more pro and cons about our trajectory and how we get from 1 to 2, potentially straight to 3, I welcome that maybe in the future.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And in lieu of time, this meeting was scheduled from 12 till 1:30. Some know that, some don't. But we will continue on. Thank you for that presentation. And our next guest speaker will be Mr. Ty Vaughn. He is the director at this time interim for the County of Fayetteville, as well as the Chief of Staff.
Good afternoon, commissioners and council members. As the Vice Chairwoman stated, my name is Ty Vaught, and I am the Chief of Staff for Cumberland County, as well as the Interim Community Development Director. been in this role since April 1st of last year when Dee Taylor retired. And so you did see me at your liaison meeting in April of this year, and I talked about some of this information, but we kind of had the benefit now of having gone through the consolidated planning process, annual action plan process. We have some more data that's available. I'm not going to go through it all today because that's 223 pages, and so I'll probably reference a couple of things, and then please go and read the plan. Actually, don't read it. Reference the plan. It's not a light reading, so I've had to review it, but it's a really good plan, and also some good information. Also, if he's listening, I don't know, he's probably going to school now, but my second intern for the second year, Jackson Bryant, he did the cover of the consolidated plan for us, so big thanks to Jackson for doing that. So, and I also think this is timely because the city of Fayetteville just went through the consolidated planning process as well. So with the consolidated planning process, it's required that we do this every 5 years. We do the annual action plan, of course, annually, which is the bite-sized version of that consolidated plan. So you would think of the consolidated plan as the long-range, annual action plans as the short plans. And then we do the CAPER at the end of each year, which is basically our report card on how did we do for that particular year. So we are the grantee. The county is the grantee for our participating jurisdiction, our urban county designation, which covers all 8 of our municipalities, excluding the city of Fayetteville. The city of Fayetteville is its own entitlement within and of itself. For the urban county designation period, that covers 2024 through 2027, so we'll be doing that again. And typically what we do is we visit all of those participating cities, towns within the jurisdiction, speak to those councils, and then they sign a cooperation agreement, and we submit that to HUD to keep them within our participating jurisdiction. 70% of CDBG funds are required to be used for the benefit of low to moderate income individuals in our county. Now, I won't go through all this, but this is just a snapshot of some of the projects that we're looking to do this year. The numbers, I probably should have put the word projected up there. A lot of the numbers, these numbers do move depending on where we're seeing some more interest in programs throughout the year. But we are, the biggest one that we have up there is housing rehabilitation. That's kind of the bread and butter for community development here at the county. That is our housing rehab program. That's split into 2 main programs. Our housing rehab, which we colloquially call the full, which is based on the equity within the individual's home. We're able to use up to 80% of the equity in the home to process a deferred forgivable loan for that individual. A little bit more bang for buck. Sometimes people don't qualify, or they're a little squeamish about having a lien on their property, and so they're more amenable for what we call the minor rehab or minor repair program, MRP, which is a $30,000 up to $30,000 grant program, which allows for those health and safety repairs within the home to keep the home livable. I just want to hit a couple of stats. Like I said, there's a lot of information, a lot of stats in that consolidated plan, but up under the housing needs assessment, some of the things I pulled out. So you'll notice severe cost burden. So there are 7,345 renter households earning less than or equal to 30% of the area median income, or spending more than 50% of their income on housing. So a total of 11,925 renter households in this income bracket experience at least some housing cost burden, meaning that 97% of our extremely low income renters are all cost burden. Overcrowding across rental and homeowner households, 391 in renter households and 273 owner households live in overcrowded conditions, which is defined as more than one person, 1.0 individuals in one room. You also have, well, this is also prevalent among large related, so families, renter households with children, which signals a shortage of affordable multi-bedroom units. Also, a prevalence of substandard housing conditions, so 45 renter households 88 homeowner households reside in units lacking complete plumbing or kitchen facilities. These units are disproportionately found in aging rural housing stock, where rehab resources have been limited or not sought after. And we of course, as a county department, we actively reach out to these individuals. Housing instability among households with disabilities. So 1,088 renter households, 550 owner households with at least one disabled member in the household experiencing one of those significant barriers I mentioned, so cost burden, overcrowding, substandard conditions. The scarcity of accessible ADA compliant units aggravates housing stability challenges for these households. Elderly households facing housing barriers, so over 2,200 lower income elderly households struggle with cost burden and lack of access to safe, accessible housing. Many of our seniors live alone and they live on fixed income and they face housing stability risk. And also the hidden homelessness and at-risk populations. So our care center run by DSS is frequently at capacity, leaving many survivors, particularly women with children, with few safe housing alternatives. And also, additionally, I'll also say that there's a large number of children in the Cumberland County school system who are identified under McKinney-Vento as experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity. So taking all that together, these data points tell a clear story about our county, where the critical needs are around housing affordability, overcrowding, quality, accessibility, and safety. And addressing these needs is not just a foundational need for our workforce, but also for the broader economic growth. And now kind of segue into public services. And Chris, I won't repeat a lot of things because I'm glad I'm at the end and a lot of this has been said, but Chris talked about public services. So there is a percentage of our funding that goes towards public services, our nonprofits. And I always say that, we do the best that we can as local governments, but our nonprofits, they do this day in and day out, and they really are the experts. And so sometimes it's just a matter of providing them some funding in order to do what they do well. And so there's just a list of some things they do, like job skills training, health services, homeless assistance, transportation, et cetera. So I've spoken about our programs in the past, and some of them overlap with what the city does, but I mentioned housing rehab. Rental rehab covers investor rehab properties projects, very similar to the housing rehab just for investors. Chris mentioned first-time home buyers program, also affordable housing development, and then he talked about kind of where LIHTC comes from, that low-income housing tax credit. And so I won't repeat, but we are involved with that as well. We work closely with the city in that as well. So, and to briefly touch on workforce, because the meeting of today, economic development, I kind of want to give you all the vantage point of community development, how that feeds into economic development. So Cumberland County invested $2 million of ARPA dollars into the HOPE program at FTCC, enabling a powerful earn as you learn model with paid internships and training that lead to industry recognized credentials. That investment significantly enhanced economic mobility and workforce readiness for residents lacking a college degree or in transition. We also granted funds to the Fayetteville State University's Entrepreneurship Hub program, which helps bolster opportunities for aspiring local entrepreneurs, another pillar in our workforce development strategy. We are now in our entering into our fifth cohort of the Ignite internship program. Importantly also, we've hired several graduates into key county roles to include many departments. I won't hit them all, but in our tax department, in DSS, the county manager's office, the sheriff's office, which demonstrates the program's real impact on staffing, local government, and also really honing in on what we, I guess, would call that homegrown talent, basically, in our area. At your June liaison meeting, Jennifer MacArthur from Mid-Carolina came and spoke to you all and talked about their internship program with NC Works. And so I met with Jennifer and that team last month, and we'll meet again, and we're talking about, I heard out of that meeting that I think it was Chairman Devier spoke about having some synergy between the programs, what the county was doing and what Mid Carolina and NC Works was doing. And so we've started that conversation to ensure that we're checking off all the boxes, making sure that everyone who wants an internship can get an internship here in Cumberland County. And us not having space or them not having space not being a reason why we can't have these young people or young adults in an internship program and looking to progress them on to that next step in their professional careers. Also, Cumberland County is a part of Team 10 for Our State, Our Homes program. Cumberland County team includes, Chris is on that team along with Alex, his assistant director. It also includes Harnett County, the deputy director there, their developmental service director, as well as one of their planners. And also Mid Carolina is on that team with us as well. And so that's an 18-month program through UNC, through their Carolina Cross 100 umbrella. It equips us with data-driven tools, expert coaching, and peer networks to craft innovative housing solutions. The regional collaboration strengthens our affordable and workforce housing capacity, which is deeply connected to economic stability and development. And together, these initiatives, skills training, entrepreneurship funding, government employment, pipelines, strategic internships, and regional housing solutions showcase how we build a workforce ecosystem anchored in opportunity, preparedness, and collaboration. And, investing in people isn't just ideal, it's a strategic thing that we do. It's how we fortify the economy, stabilize families, and future-proof Cumberland County. And I'll take any questions that you have.
Any questions at this time? Mayor Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Vaught. I'll make sure I give Jackson your regards about his presentation. We just dropped him off a couple days ago. But so this is probably for you and Chris in conjunction. So some of the things that come through our doors for poverty reduction, some of those folks that are calling just need help with rent. How are you two working together? Because DSS is a county department which probably runs parallel, if not intersects, with a lot of the same citizens that we represent, constituents. How do y'all work together? That's the kind of partnership I wanted to ask about. If you could speak on that.
Absolutely. So one of the things, wherever the call comes in, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to direct them through that coordinated entry process to make sure that we're not playing whack-a-mole and we're making sure people are going directly to the service that they need. And so at the Day Resource Center, where Cumberland HealthNet, they administer that program, they can call the number. They will go through an intake process, and then through that intake process, we're able to provide referrals to whichever entity is best situated to assist them, which may be the county, may be a nonprofit, it may be another entity.
So that's for the unsheltered. I'm speaking more to the folks that call and say, hey, I need an emergency roof repair, I can't pay my rent this month, or, we get a lot of those type of emails that we'll just send to your office. So because both of you all share that same common goal, are people who live in the city excluded from participating in the county programs or vice versa?
So the part of that, I think that's two different things, I think, so if they're looking for like a rehabilitation project, something like that, we do go through that process of determining where do you live? And so we will determine if you live in the city or live in the county, and that's where we'll direct that service. But even if it is, like you mentioned, utility assistance, beyond just a housing thing, we will still put them through that coordinated entry process to make sure that we're getting them to a resource that has the available funding to provide that.
And the last thing I'll say is that, got 2 points. So one, Chris had mentioned that we've got a grant to help with an economic mobility person who will be a full-time person paid by the grant. Are you all collaborating with that? Because you really can't have good economic mobility in just a city. I mean, it needs to be a county-wide plan because, poverty doesn't stop at city limits or town limits. So are you all coordinating that at all?
So the intention is absolutely. So the special project manager that we'd be bringing on their job will be to set up this coordinated framework across all of the different anchor institutions, government, education, et cetera. And so Ty and Heather would be the first people I pick up the phone and call to talk about that.
All right. And the last question I have, of course, the elephant in the room. We were meeting this morning with the garrison and the new deputy garrison, who mentioned about our homelessness problem in some areas that they see. One said he was a boater and he goes up and down the river, and he said it's a number of communities there, 10 communities. Any updates on where we are as a county or community with, I know you all are playing catch up on a lot as a community, but just any updates, because I know that is probably on the minds of a few of us.
We have a meeting this afternoon. Are you speaking in reference to the homeless situation?
Yes, ma'am.
We do have a meeting for our listeners out there. We have put together a unhoused, sheltered, we call it an emergency committee. And matter of fact, we do have a meeting today at 3 o'clock. With that, we have our manager, Heather Skeens, as well as our assistant manager, Heather Skeens, as well as our main manager, Mr. Greer. They serve on that, as well as we have people from the Mental Health Alliance. We know that many times people that have unhoused have serious issues when it comes to substance abuse. Dr. Green is also on that committee. So we are pleased to announce, and he spoke of earlier, Kingdom of Care. We do have an emergency meeting today at 3 o'clock. This is outside of, we have a regular, I don't want to confuse people, we have an unhoused shelter committee, which is about the center we're building, but then we have also an unhoused emergency shelter for our community because of the fact that the Salvation Army is closed. So we meet today at 3 o'clock, great timing, and as of this afternoon, and Mr. Ty is on that committee as well, we hope to have some updates in regards to where we're going in that direction. We were able to house, we're pleased to say, 25 to 26 families, and they've now transitioned through the system of working with DSS. I see Ms. Jackson here today and her staff, as well as Continuum Care, was able to place them after working with the city. We appreciate you all's financial support with that, having them housed once the Salvation closed for 90 days. And so now they've transitioned on, but we do have some more positive updates. We also put out an RFP, wanting to see what are good service providers out there. So we are due diligently moving forward with this national crisis and community crises, and I'm pleased to announce that today, again, not to confuse people, two different committees, the Unhoused Shelter Committee, that is something no doubt for the center that we're working with to see about having something moving forward, and then the Unhoused Emergency Shelter Committee is that up to try to help with this crisis since the Salvation Army is closed, and that meeting will be today at 3 o'clock, and I look forward to giving you all some updates after that meeting today. Any more? Yes, and you want to add, Chairman Devier?
If I can, to the mayor's question, Madam Chairwoman. So a couple things. We're looking at it in that short term, intermediate, and long term. So last Monday night, we received from a long-term standpoint an update on the unhoused shelter. It's been going on since 2022. We needed to make some, the architects brought that to us on Monday night. It's kind of phase one. It's the conceptual side of it. What are we going to do? What's going to look like staying within the $17 million budget that we've allocated against that? Now we'll take the next step in that and begin to look at how that gets built out. Trying to put it on a 18-month kind of time frame. We're not trying. That's the other piece of this, is trying to get a time frame. We understand the urgency to get capacity in our community because we lost 50 beds of capacity when the Salvation Army closed. So that speaks to the short term. So when we talk about emergency shelter, we're looking at that immediate kind of 50-bed capacity. Staff put out an RFI, a request for information, that came out. We had to subsequently put it back out because we didn't get enough qualified recipients. So we're going to look at that and make some identify some potential partners. The problem in this community, quite frankly, Mayor, is that there's not a turnkey solution from a space that safely in a dignified way puts our unhoused population, specifically our families and our women, because y'all have done a great job at the city of providing that space for the men, but we don't have a space that's safe and dignified in a way that for families and women that that we can just turnkey and stand up right now. Plus, we have to find a provider to do it as well. And we've had people in the community step up, and that's part of the RFI we're looking at. But that short term has got to be, you're not going to turn something up overnight. So we're trying to look at how long is that going to take? Is it 90 days? Is it 120 days? Is it 180 days? We know the long-term goal is to get that longer capacity, and we know we need that. But the other piece of this is, as you well both know, you and the Mayor Pro Tem, we talk about every meeting, is the mental health piece. So we are actively working on that mental health piece, partnering with the Alliance, is who is our partner on the mental health side, as well as DSS and our health department, on how we're looking to do that mental health piece. We've allocated as a board $4 million to a diversion facility. We've got to begin to look at how we do that and what that looks like to make sure that we can bring those people that need help, overnight help, that may not need to be in a shelter but need to be in a center like that, so that we can use the shelter for those people that may just need that couple overnight to get back on their feet. So a lot of activity is happening. The problem is this, just like infrastructure, is we're 10 years behind where we should have been, Mayor. We're 5 years behind where we should have been because we didn't make deliberate execution of the plans that were on the table and fund the things that needed to be funded.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for supporting me on that and reiterating, as I had stated, we will have a meeting this afternoon at 3 o'clock. I know that you all did have a meeting on Monday, so you probably weren't aware that on our Monday meeting that, as he stated, that information was given. And again, there are two separate things that are taking place. One, that's been stated here already, that one is, yes, the long-term and the short-term. Today at 3 o'clock, we don't want to give out information until today we'll have those updates from the information that has been put out there. And they did, and my apologies because you all did have your meeting same time that we did have an update for the longer-term version, but we're just excited, since we're working on two different entities, of getting more updates that have taken place within these last 2 months. And I do want to say, Mr. Ty Vaught, and as well as to you, Chris, both of you had a wonderful presentation. I noticed that you both had mentioned the Chamber of Commerce a few times in your presentation. And for those that are listening, I would encourage you, I know we're talking about Tier 1, 2, and 3, so this is more or less just a comment. When we speak of Tier 1, 2, and 3, the Commerce of North Carolina, that's what they're talking about, and you're welcome to go to the website, commerce.nc.gov. That is where you can find out the ratings when it comes to Tier 1, 2, and 3, of which is, unfortunately, we are in Tier 1. It is our goals and hopes to become a Tier 2 and no doubt later a Tier 3, because the North Carolina Department of Commerce, they annually do rank the state's 100 counties based on economic well-being and assigns each as a tier designation. And the tier system is also put into place by various programs to encourage economic activity and their prosperity for each state. And I did want to say that because we are a Tier 1, many of you might be wondering, how do we go about those findings and how do they do their ratings? They actually take in place these 4 different ratings, and I will just read this information to you. The county tiers, they calculate from 4 different factors: average unemployment rate within each county, also the median household income, as well as the percentage growth population, as well as the adjusted property tax base per capita. And I would like if you would put back on that screen, please, your information about the, I think it was in household identifications. You had a screen with the breakdown with rental and whatnot. And this is why we are now a tier. This identified housing, as you'll look at the numbers as he had stated earlier, this is how we have became a Tier 1, because as it states, when you go to the commerce.nc.gov, for our listeners or those in here, they are going to take in those 4 factors: average unemployment rate, median household income, percentage growth and population, adjusted property tax base per capita. And so therefore, when you fall into these numbers, it puts you into, unfortunately, a Category 1. Just to give a little bit of information, what would a Tier 2 look like? Tier 2, and this is the latest stats on their website for Tier 2 as of in 2025, Hornet County, which is right around the corner from us in our backyard. Also, you have as a Tier 2, that would be a Franklin County. Now, a Tier 1 that you can be looking at would be places such as that they have listed is going to be Chatham, not Chatham, but Durham County, and also places such as, let me see what else is on here as a 1, Bedford County. So we need to be mindful that we too can be a Tier 1. We know what's in place. I really appreciate that of all of these reports from economic development, collaboration, working together. But if you look yourself on a further time, Anson County, Tier 1, Bedford County, Caldwell County, Tier 2 is going to be places like Durham County, Clay County, and so Cumberland County, which were also Tier 1. So if the goal is to get to places like a Tier 3, Granville County, Tier 2 is even Guilford County, Hornet County, Tier 2, we definitely know that collaboration and working together and making sure we push forth, because the goal would definitely be a Tier 3. So again, that website is going to be your North Carolina Chambers of Commerce.gov, and we want to make sure that we do our due diligence to continue to work together and make sure that we do all we can do with our education system. And again, these are just the stat rates that are on their site. Since you all did mention the commerce.nc.gov for the last listings in 2025. So I do want to commend you for your identified housing needs. It's definitely in alignment with that of what they say their criteria is to come to these type of analysis and that status, which are important. So are there any more questions? And with Mayor Pro Tem, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. So I have a question just so I can wrap it around my head. When we talked about housing renovation for elderly, and we talked about the way the grants were and the way the money was, there was a question asked. So if you live in the city, is the only help that you can get is through your office? So if you live in the city of Fayetteville and the money has dried up, and better word of using it, for the city, can they go to the county?
So I don't know that we've, is that on now?
It's on.
Okay. So I don't know that we've had that experience where the money's not there and then we go to the county. We've put considerable amounts of funding. When I got here, it was about $450,000 a year. We've increased that steadily over time to upwards of $900,000 with those two agencies that we use, Fayetteville Urban Ministry and Habitat. If somebody does call us and they're clearly outside of the city limits, we call over to Ty's team at Community Development, and they take them from there. The way that, if you notice the participating jurisdictions that Ty put up, the way that HUD views this money is that they give us an allotment for the city, and then they give an allotment for the remainder of the county that's signed on as a participating jurisdiction. That's not to say that never the two shall cross, but from a planning and programming standpoint, you would want to plan that money out. But to get to your example of if we ran out of money, I think that's something we haven't really crossed. I think that if the county ran out of money and we were looking at a county resident, we could definitely look into it and see, but I've never really encountered that to know what's allowed.
And I'm not saying either way is right or wrong. I'm just, if somebody calls us, so if somebody calls, if we have an elderly person that's in Falcon, they go to the county.
Correct.
But if there was an elderly person that had a residence in Fayetteville and they went to the county, you would direct them to the city.
Correct, because many times there's a Fayetteville address, but it's outside the city
Correct.
of Fayetteville. We will we'll triangulate where do you actually live, and depending on what, if that's county or city, we will then call Chris's team and let them know, hey, this is a city resident or is a county resident, and we'll take care of it.
And the reason why I did ask for it, I like your analogy of you're in the grocery store and somebody asks you a question. The first question I will ask is, where do you live? Do you live in the county, or do you live in the city, so I can direct them in the right place? But that's a great program, and thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I didn't want to belabor this because I know you put us on a tight timeline, about 8 minutes. But so, Chris, I do remember circumstances where some elderly or seniors have called needing emergency repair, and they tell them that we're out of budget, you have to call back. So what happens in a case like that? Are they then eligible to go to the county if there's remaining funds, because they are a county resident as well? Because I do know instances that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely had some moments where in July, August, one of our partners might say, we haven't gotten a contract from the city, so we don't have money yet. That hasn't been the case in a couple of years now. We're pretty solid about getting contracts executed right at the beginning of July and getting that funding rolling. That does get them put on a wait list for city services. if at that point, I'd have to talk to my Fayetteville Administrative Habitat folks to see if they turn around and then take that client over there. But for some of the examples that you've had come across your desk, that it was either the program coordinator did not talk to their boss and thought they didn't have money, or like I said, for a couple of years there, when I first got here, we were a little slower on getting contracts out right at the 1st of July, and that caused some of that as well.
I have someone I'll get in contact with you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. And on that note, you read my mind, Chris. I was going to ask about the waiting list. Could you give an update, Ty? That happens a lot, as we were talking about everyday people asking, go to a lot of senior meetings, run into a lot of seniors and even people with lower income, and that's their concern. And since we just came off a budget, their frustration is, can you tell people where we're at? Thank you for that update for the city in regards to if they call, are their fundings already here, or is there a waiting list? Because that is a very key, every day on the street question people ask. They don't want to call and they say, well, I've already called Urban Ministry and they have a waiting list. Many times, as we know, the websites state that there's these programs, but it doesn't state that there's a waiting list. So where are we at with fundings when it comes to rental, services to help with rental? I know we have a program with that, or when it comes to that of fixing things up, is there a waiting list, or is it open money now, or what's the situation if they were to call today?
Sure. So two sides to that. As far as the 4 programs I showed before, like housing, rehab, rental, those are directed directly through the department. And so we typically, we do this through the annual action plan process. We will identify a number, and so for this year, for example, we've slated for 22 housing rehab projects. So I have 2 construction coordinators who work that program, so that's 11 each that they're doing. And we're taking applications on a rolling basis for individuals to apply for that program and then be qualified. And so it's really, yes, ma'am.
So right now, they're open and available. You said you've only used 2, so some of those slots are available.
Yes, so we're actively taking applications for all of our programs. And then, of course, it comes down, we'll take as many applications as comes in, and then we will prioritize them based on, qualifications, need, and so on and so forth. The other side to that, you're talking about like our nonprofits, our services.
Yeah.
And I talked about that coordinated entry process. So through that coordinated entry process, and not getting too deep into it, going through like the HMIS, that Housing Management Information System, these different organizations who participate, they have a page there. They provide a service. And so when they're coming through that whole process and referrals are going out, then people are able to basically to pick up those referrals. And so if there's funding available there, then they can pick up that referral. If there's not funding available there, that referral may go to another entity. It may be the county, it may be whoever. And so for us, it's not a matter of a wait list. It's for us, it's did the referral come to us? Do we have the funding to provide that? Typically we do. It starts to get a little tight at the end of the year because of course you've gotten to where you're kind of using up your allocation for that year. But typically we are on a regular basis, doing utility assistance, doing rental, doing what's what I'm looking for. I can't think of what I'm looking for. But, when somebody's renting and we're putting down the deposit, that's what I'm looking for, putting on deposit, doing 1, 2, and 3 months of prospective rent going forward, and so on and so forth. And so we're typically always looking at that, whether or not another entity has existing or remaining funds for that program year. Hope that answers the question.
It does. Right now, we have availability, but it's going to be getting used up but closer to the end of the year, so I encourage you.
Oh, and I should mention, because the board just did this on Thursday, so we brought forth a voucher program that we're bringing back to the board for approval on their 25th meeting, which will provide an additional $250,000 for the program to include things like assistance with rent, relocation, transportation, utility assistance, and the like. And so that's another investment that the board has made into addressing this critical issue and need.
And thank you. I was going to mention that, but I figured that you would catch that. That's, again, another additional on the county side and the city side working together, just trying to put as many things in place. Again, as we all know, unhoused, whether it's that of the homeless, and even rent rates are high in economic development. From both sides, all three of you gentlemen, we appreciate the work together, as we know that this is definitely, growth is that of something of which when people look at different cities and counties to move to, they're definitely looking at education infrastructure, and they're looking at economic development. So I want to thank you, and we felt that this definitely quality of life was very important to bring back. I want to thank our listening audience. I know that I've been hearing a lot in the community this is a military transit town. A lot of times people have the opportunity during their lunchtime to listen and see this. I know that our numbers are going up. I keep a lookout on that with our social media. More people than you know watch YouTube or have access, especially a lot of our seniors. It's just more feasible, and those with disabilities, to watch this at their own leisure, if not in real time, but later. So these meetings are very important. I do want to give credit to our community that we sometimes do not give. We have a very active community here, not just that of military, although we appreciate our military, but civilians, and they're a lot more active than we think. So again, I thank everyone for their time. If there's no more questions at this time, then this does conclude today's City and County Liaison meeting. But before we do that, rushing here too much, I'm going to be on a hard stop time, but I need to make sure we do finish out our agenda. Is there any other items of business that need to be looked at this time from our manager, Greer?
No other items of business.
If there's no more items of business, then I will state, then can I ask for this meeting to be adjourned and get a second on that?
So moved, Madam Chair.
All right, second.